I'll introduce myself. I am Richard Tendick. I am the Vice President of the Guild. What we're going to do is we're going to have our meeting. We have our preeminent veneerist in the Guild is going to be giving his talk. Of course, you all know that. And we also have a guest who's going to be talking about his business, which is helping kids with stuff that makes their life better. So he'll be talking about that later. Now, first off, I'd like to ask how many new people are here? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to bring by the microphone. If you would just give us your name, where you're from, and what your your main interest is. Just a second. Just talking to there.
Mukunda O'Brien. I'm from St. Peter, and I build furniture.
Okay. Okay.
My name is Tim Hartzell, and my primary interest is in treenware. So things that are made out of wood is, I learned wood turning in England some time ago. I've been out of it, but I've come back into I've always been doing wood carving and wood turning. So that's kind of my main thing.
Okay. Cool. And then there was someone over here. Yeah, there we go.
I'm Mike Anderson. I tend to do cabinets and tables, those type of things. Got to be square, can't be any of this carving, artist type stuff. I don't do that.
No curves?
No curve, no.
No angles?
Yeah, we'll let the band solve it.
Okay. So those are our new people, and we're always happy to have you guys. If you have a chance to talk to them, those of you who have been around for a while, give these guys a little talk, because it's always nice to have somebody to make friends with while they're here. Okay. First off, I think that we'll have Mark come up and talk. He's going to be talking about Joy, I think is the name of this organization. So he'll tell you all about it.
That's all I need to do. Okay, you're hearing me okay? All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Ostrom. I'm from Minneapolis, and my background is commercial interior design. When my career was just about killing me and my soul was empty, I decided it was time for something new. So I looked back on my highlights of my career, and one of them was working on the Rainforest Cafe. So I got to work on the first rainforest here at the Mall of America. So I'm sorry if you've been there multiple times or children have dragged you there. It's not my fault, but it kind of is my fault. We had an amazing design team. And what I wanted to do in my next phase of my career was kind of bring that excitement and energy to people I'd worked with in the past. I'd worked with families with disabilities through my college days and wanted to put those two things together. So hence Joy Collaborative. So I was invited here by Ed to talk to you and kind of give you a quick overview of what we do as a company. So Joy Collaborative is a collaboration of local designers and architects and builders like yourselves who come together and bring joy to young people. We work with young people who are 5 to 17 years old in the Twin Cities area. So we work within 50 miles of the Twin Cities. We will have multiple rooms done across the Twin Cities at the end of this year. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we do so you get a little bit more familiar with some of our stories. And I'll leave some business cards up here at the front. So if you're interested in contacting me later, give me a buzz. So hang on a second, we get this rolling. Thanks for showing up and letting me yak a little bit. So we're a design-driven company, and we work with kids with life-limiting conditions. So we define those as medical diagnosis. So those could be spina bifida. We've worked with kids who are deaf and blind, and we're currently doing a project in St. Peter right now for a young boy with brain damage. And we are a partnership. So we work with, like I mentioned, architects, interior designers, tradespeople, all the vendor partners, electricians, to do these rooms at no cost to those that we're serving. So we are a nonprofit. We get our funds from the community, and I'll talk about that in a second. But just sort of a big picture, that's what we do as a business. And we call our projects Joy Rooms. And here's a sampling of the kinds of work that we do. So not to bring you down, but I always say I have the best job in the world, unfortunately, because our pipeline will never run dry. And that gets me really excited from a design perspective. And from a need perspective, just to kind of give you a premise of kind of what the need is just in Minnesota. So developmental disabilities in kids are 1 in 6. So if you imagine a typical classroom, multiple kids in every classroom have some sort of learning disability, cognitive disability. That could be anything from dyslexia to on up. Physically disabled, 40,000. Poverty rate is 1 in 10, basically 1 in 10 kids in Minnesota. And at any given night in the state of Minnesota, 6,000 youth are homeless. So here's an example of some of the kids we've served in the last year or two. Our focus, like I said, is kids 5 to 17 years old. And we do projects for individuals, so in individual homes, and then also in group settings. And I'll talk about some of those in a second. So our model is we're a nonprofit. So we have a board of directors. We have a working board of 7 with a range of experience from those working at Ronald McDonald House to those who are CPAs, finance, marketing. I mean, a whole bevy of people helping us. Donors and corporate sponsors help us. So individual donors probably make up 2/3 of our funding. The rest are grants and corporate sponsorships. We do some events. And like I said, corporate partners or design partners are really what help put the fuel in the tank. So our process, just to kind of give you a little bit behind the curtain of how we figured these things out, we fund the mission. We've got to get some fuel in our own tanks so that we can go out and do this amazing work. And then we vet our candidates, and that could be working with social workers. That could be working with other executive directors of, say, a homeless foundation, and really understand what the need is. Obviously, as this is a free service to those we're working with, we don't want to be taken advantage of. Then we get into design, specification, all the stuff that you guys are used to working with. And then once we're done, we share the heck of our story. I just got a call yesterday from KSTP asking for more stories to cover. So I'm super excited about that. So this is really all about well-being. This is about serving people who may have not a great outlook in their current situation, and really addressing daily problems. So I call it the multiverse. So we're trying to address things beyond just putting new paint up on the walls, beyond giving somebody, a new pillow in their room. These are really functional changes that we're dealing with. So some testimonials that get me excited. Joy brought me hope from a family we didn't even know what was possible. Working on the project opened my heart from a designer. We'd never be able to do this on our own from a facilities director. And I get a lot of, we need more stories like this. In dark times, we can come in and, work with, I always say brainstorming with a 10-year-old is the best hour you're ever going to have all year. So some projects that we've done, the boy on the right, Kodiak, it has Charge syndrome, which is super rare neurological and physical condition. He was deaf and blind and cognitively delayed. He is 15 years old. So you can imagine, here's this kid, 15 years old, in his home, does a lot of wandering, and his parents were going bananas. So in the end, we did a multi-sensory room for him. We put in kind of a split level activity space for him. And his dad pulled me aside and said, Mark, last weekend we had friends over. It's the first time Kodiak's ever had friends over in 15 years because kids were afraid of him. On the flip side, we've got Bennett, who's just a ray of sunshine. This kid's smile would fill up a room, but he had spina bifida and he was 11 years old. Here he is right before his 18th surgery. So he's 11, he had 18 surgery. So he spent 6 weeks during our project in bed, could not move because he had his hips reset. But here he is with TC Bear, and what we did with some millwork folks is we created kind of a stadium seat here, which actually doubled as a transfer, and he was doing physical therapy with Sister Kenny online and wasn't able to do it in the home that they had. You can see also in the background, we did a sort of a false stair for him because he really hated doing stairs, but parents really wanted to keep him active. So we have a false stair in there, and then we've got an incredible Nerf gun wall that was in there for just a whole lot of fun. So some of our projects that are coming at us, I mentioned the homeless center in Uptown. Their space is super sad. It's so sad to the point where they're having trouble recruiting staff. So we're coming in and we'll have something done for them this summer. Make-A-Wish I'll talk about in a second. Jaden I'll talk about too. But we're doing a room for prairie care up here in Brooklyn Center. And then we're starting to work with public schools on doing multi-sensory kinds of spaces for them. So to highlight some projects here, Firefighters for Healing. It's a brand new healing center in downtown Minneapolis. Watch the news. It's going to get a lot of coverage. It's the first one of its kind in the country. So people who've been affected by fire, either first responders or young people, go there to recover and get treatment from HCMC. They're connected by Skyway. We are doing a room for them, which reflects their summer camp, which is called Camp Red. So we're working with some woodworkers right now on doing a sign for them. And we've got a wood turner actually building a little drop down desk for kids so they can be in the space and have something to do outside of technology. And then we're working with another fabricator on doing this giant picture frame of Dalmatians, which will be made out of fire hoses. So kind of fun and creative project. Highland Friendship, this is a new project in St. Paul and Falcon Heights. They serve young people with disabilities, typically cognitively and physical. We are lucky enough to do their first physical space ever. They've been around for 20 years. If you've heard of Highland Friendship Club, they've been around. They do about 300 different programs a year for their staff or for their clients, the members. And here's just some examples of what we're working on. So we've got custom tables we're doing, kind of a drum fixture that doesn't have to be as boring as this. Somebody with some creative thought could take a whack at that. And then you can see some things that are really straightforward. So we have a need at Joy Collaborative for talent to do any range of these things. This one has me kind of excited right now. Jaden came to us through Can Do Canines. So they're a service in the western suburbs that trains therapy dogs, canine dogs. And he's got autism. And his single mom is struggling with him because he can get very dysregulated in his house. And so what we're doing is doing sort of an autism focused space for him. We're actually taking his bed right now, which is one of those double kind of, it's not really a lofted bed, but the upper level is higher. It's probably about chest high on me. And for him, that's really scary. So we're bringing that down. And because he's got this cool black lab companion, we're building a sensory space underneath the bed so the two of them can get together and hang out. So one of the elements that we're working on for them, he's a huge basketball fan. So we're looking at doing kind of a multi-sensory tactile puzzle that we're going to put up on the wall. So when he gets dysregulated, he can go and kind of hit the texture on that, and that will really calm him down. So it's kind of a fun use of different kinds of different materials than maybe you've seen in the past. Make-A-Wish. We did a couple projects for them years ago, and they called me back and said, we need some help on backyard sheds. So since COVID, Disney travels down, bringing superheroes into your home, super celebrities and stuff just isn't welcome anymore, but backyard play is. So they've been struggling with trying to deliver these models. Kids have been waiting up to 2 years for these. And so we're working with them on creating some prototypes that we're going to deliver starting this fall. So again, from a woodworker's perspective, we could use some, porch swings, we could use chairs, we could use flower boxes. Who knows what those things are? We could use some furniture done on the inside. So just kind of giving you an understanding, or maybe where you could maybe see yourself potentially partnering with us. So time, talent, and treasure. That's what I'm all about, is asking our community to contribute and help us help these kids who really struggle. And if you know anybody who's in community philanthropy, have them give me a call. I'd love to talk to them. Or we've got some people who just throw parties for us. They maybe don't have the time or talent to dedicate to this, but maybe their company wants to get some people together and do a little fundraiser for us, or just a little awareness night like we're having right now. I started this company from my kitchen table in 2017, nights and weekends, doing one project at a time. Never in my wildest dreams, having started a company, did I think that I'd be able to tell you that by the end of this year, 5,000 kids will be able to access our Joy Rooms. Pretty amazing. So it's really cool. We're only 2.5 years in. We've got a long way to go. We've got some really ambitious plans, but we can't do it without partnership. So that's my introduction to Joy Collaborative. I'm leaving cards here. If you would like to join us, give me a holler. There's got to be questions.
Contact number or any information that you can hand out?
I've got my business card here. You can reach me through our website, joycollaborative.org. There's a contact page there with my email address on it. Shoot me questions, shoot me emails. I'd love to work with you and get you on these projects. I'm telling you, it is heartwarming like you don't know, to be able to use your skills for somebody who really could use it. So thank you.
Thank you. Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, on to some guild business. Our next major event is our Northern Woods. Charlie? Charlie, you want to come up and talk about Northern Woods?
So, call attention to myself and you make me come up here and talk. There's a microphone, I take it. Yeah, so if anyone doesn't know me, my name's Charlie Kasorik, and I am chairman of our Northern Woods Committee. And if you don't know what Northern Woods is, it's an exhibition that the Guild puts on every year. And this year will be our 39th exhibition, 39th year of doing this. And this exhibition is held at Eden Prairie Center. We get anywhere from 40 to 75 entries per year. We have about $4,000 in cash and prizes that we give away. And it's a lot of fun. And the idea of it is to just be able to show your stuff off to other people, get some feedback on it. It's an opportunity to meet and greet and talk to other woodworkers and talk to the public and get some that sort of feedback on your piece. And so besides all that fun you could have, you could possibly even win a prize, make some money on it. So Northern Woods is April 27th to 30th next year. And our committee is barreling away, doing great work. And so I guess the main message today is put it on your calendar and start working on your projects. You have something to enter. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't done it, yes, sir.
Does that mean setup's the 26th?
That's setup will be that Wednesday.
Okay. And
Yeah.
when does registration start?
Registration will start in January. We don't have an exact date. Registration will close about probably about the 17th, approximately. I don't have a calendar in front of me of April, about 7 to 10 days before the show starts. Any other questions? So who all comes? Oh, well, that's a great question, Mike. We most of a large number of the people in the guild, and there are about 700 members in the guild right now, 800, I don't know, something like that. And so a lot of them should come through, people from other organizations. There's a guild in St. Cloud. A lot of those people will come to look at it. Woodworkers from around the town will come to look at it. As far as we have judges, lately we've had 2 local judges and 1 from out of town. So we get somebody, usually there's a seminar in the fall every year. So we've been having our fall presenter come in and be one of the judges. No vendors. It's not for selling. It's just an exhibition. And it's nice. We have nice display cabinets. I like to think it's very professionally done. And what else should I say about it? Oh, and the public. There's a lot of, people walking through the mall. There's a lot of people walking through that mall. So there's a lot of traffic. So a lot of people get to see your stuff. And it's not a selling show, but you can put a price on your piece, and people have sold occasionally, have sold pieces through the show. So, all right.
Also do promote it through Rockler and Woodcraft. So it is the public hardware that I know I've sent students in university to go there.
Yeah. And we're always looking for new and better ways to try and promote the show. And yeah, so it's a great event. All right.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, next, we're going to have the drawing for the door prizes. So first thing I'm going to give away is this pole saw. And we're looking for the number 060. Aha. Tom. Every time he comes, to do something, he wins, so. Next, we're going to give away a drill press vise. By the way, all of these are from Woodcraft, are one of our main supply sponsors. So 066. Okay. Next, we've got a set of chisels. 085. Hey, we got a new person getting one. Okay, now we've got a set of mechanical pencils. Very good. I use those all the time. 079. Roger. What's that? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Roger's got the Guild shirts. Dan, if you want to stand up and show us what it looks model, you know, I'd like nice, sexy pose. Okay, so Roger's selling shirts like that. So they're right back there. Talk to him. Okay, next we got a little Japanese saw. It's for flush cutting. 081. Okay, then I got the measuring tool set. Number 064. Okay, then we got this chemical set for taking care of your tools. Number, not that one. That's mine. 068. And then last is we have a two-handed push block. 065. Okay, that's all the tools we've got right now. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our main speaker. Our guy is, some of you probably all know, Tom Schrunk. Tom, you want to come on up here? Okay. You want to talk about him? Okay. I wanted him to stand by it so that he can be suitably embarrassed. Okay.
Hi, I'm Matt LeBeau. I'm on the program committee. I'm going to introduce Tom Schrunk. Probably a lot of you don't need an introduction for Tom. He's been called one of the 5 top veneer artists in America. His work has been found in collections of Ronald Reagan, Sophia Lauren, royal families of India, Bob Hope, others in US, Europe, and Asia. As an artist in lustrous materials, Tom has been named a Minnesota original by Minnesota Public Television. He's been commissioned by Steinway Pianos to build 5 what they call art case pianos that Steinway builds a few of those every year, sometimes none. Tom's done 5 of those. He's created numerous tables, other works of art. He's written articles for Fine Woodworking. Minneapolis Star Tribune described him as a virtuoso, easy for me to say, veneer. Although he's primarily known for his woodworking veneers, he's also the inventor of lustrous concrete blocks. He received 5 US patents involving glass texturing, aluminum extrusions, etc. He builds wooden boats in the past with life-size fish inlays that were a featured attraction at the Minnesota Boat Show and was chosen as a guide to the governor's fishing opener in 1990. And the list keeps going on and on. That's why Tom was inducted into the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild Hall of Fame and why we're thrilled to have him here this evening to talk about veneering. Thanks, Tom. Okay.
Thanks, Pat. Well, it's good to see this many people come out on a night like this. And I would like to thank a number of people that have helped me along my way. We've all had a journey. I've been fortunate. Richard Tendick has always been there for me. Mark Laub, Charlie Kosorek. Charlie helped with one of the Steinway pianos. Mark Laub also helped with one of the Steinway pianos. He did actually quite a bit of work, and we went around for a while. But when I was on the way in, there was some animals that were running along the driveway, and it reminded me of there were two animals that ran into each other in the woods. And one of them said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you." And the other one said, I didn't see you either. I'm blind." "You are? So am I." "Wow, that's a coincidence. What kind of animal are you?" "I don't know. What are you?" I said, "Oh, I've never seen my reflection either. I have an idea. Let's feel each other and tell what we find, and maybe we'll figure out what we are." "Okay, well, here, I'll start with you." "Well, you're sort of roundish, and going to the back, well, that's sort of a fluffy cotton tail. Going to the front, you have long furry ears and whiskers and a little button nose. I think you're a bunny rabbit." He said, "Oh, that's it. I feel like a rabbit. I'm so happy. Wow. Let me feel you now." "Okay. Wow, you are really low to the ground and long, sort of round like rope. Going to the back, well, you just sort of taper off. But going to the front, let's see, you're slimy and scaly. You've got beady eyes and a forked tongue. I think you're an attorney." I do call myself an artist in lustrous materials, and the thing that fascinates me is that there are a number of materials that when the light strikes them, the light is not uniformly redistributed. Lustrous materials have something in their surface or in their structure or something in it's an optical quality that when the light that strikes it, it goes in very particular in a particular direction rather than uniformly being distributed. And there are human hair, silk, brushed metals, a number of gems, and I know a number of you have heard the term chatoyance. That comes from chat oeil, French for cat's eye. It's the gem cat's eye. And wood is a very lustrous material, and it's lustrous because the wood cell the cell wall is composed of lignin and cellulose, and they're basically water clear. And that cell, once the light goes in, and it'll spin around, but it can't come out at an extreme angle because of the index of refraction. It's going to come out more or less perpendicular to the angle of the grain, to the angle of that cell. And by knowing that, you can use that as an active design element. And that's something that I got very, very interested in, and I've been playing around with that for some time. One thing I will say is I can go on and on and on. So if you have a question at any time, I'm not offended at all by answering if you had an interest in something. The image here is of it's a recognition wall for the Minneapolis Foundation. These are 2-inch squares of mahogany, and they're all from the same lot. There's no difference at all in the luster of those. The reason that that you see the image of this great tree is it's purely the angle of the squares, and I cut the squares actually in 10-degree increments. You put something with a 10-degree angle beside 20, beside 30, beside 40, 30, 20. You can play around and you can cause imagery to come up. And this is 16 feet across, 5.5 feet high. It's about 3,000 squares in this. And it's also curved. And I will say this, one of the things that is a huge benefit to anybody is to have a project that's a real challenge. When things are easy, you don't grow. And this took about 2 months to do, but the definition line that you see that causes the presentation of this tree is the angle change. These are horizontal where the trunk becomes vertical, and that is followed all the way around. There's a point at which the angle is more or less 45 degrees from the light source. But you can see, knowing that the light that comes from these squares is more or less perpendicular to the angle of the grain, the light source is up here, and it's up here, but you can see here it's at an angle, the light's over here. That's because you're looking at it from this angle. As you walk past, your relationship with all of those squares is going to be changing. And the first time they turned the lights on this thing, and I walked past, there's 3,000 squares that are changing luminosity simultaneously. It's one of those things, my God, did I do that?
If you zoom in on that, can you make out the little squares?
Yes, well, you can see some of the alignment lines, and the squares are about like this. Yeah.
If you had light sources that surrounded the whole thing, would the pattern disappear? Would it become just homogeneous?
That's an excellent question. The thing that happens here is you're seeing some areas that are really quite bright, and when light hits a particular angled cell, it's going to go. The light that comes from it is going to be more or less a fan. It's not going to be a beam, but instead of being over a 180-degree hemisphere, it will go out as a fan that sort of. When you're walking along, you're going to, at one angle, you're going to be where it's at its very brightest, and then 90 degrees away from that, you get a different angle. It will be at its darkest. And so that light dark creates this. That's with single source lighting. If you have a lighting from one single source, you have a set of squares or whatever your unit is, whatever you're constructing it of, that will be at the optimal angle. If you add a second light over here, you have a subset now that are lit. The first batch is also lit. Add a third, you get another one, and a fourth and a fifth. And the answer to your question is, the more lights you have, the more that it tends to wash out. The worst lighting would be lighting not that dissimilar to what we have in the room, which would be universal lighting. And there's really very little in the way of highlights. This is the center of the tree, and you may be able to see squares here a little bit better. This is a room divider that I did. It was in Northern Woods, by the way. Charlie's right, you should all be in Northern Woods. But you can see some of these panels are light and quite dark, and that's because the angle has changed. The pattern actually does flow from one into the next. And if it were laid flat, you wouldn't have that light dark. But when you, again, as you walk past, you get you get a light show. This is a,
How thick are each one of these squares?
oh, these are veneers.
Right.
The veneers are, about a 42nd of an inch, a 40th of an inch, 42nd of an inch or so.
How long does it take you to do?
Well, you know, I before I answer that, I take a look at the shoes of the person that's asking. And if they've got Gucci's, it's a long time. This is a boardroom table in oak. I hate oak, at least in veneer, that I did for the Ryan companies in downtown Minneapolis. And this is a boat-shaped table. The boat shape it's rounded on the edge. So if a conference table is straight, then everybody has to lean forward to see the other people that are talking. Boat shape allows everybody to see everybody else at the table. And I was asked to give a presentation on several designs. And I came up with this design, and I mentioned there was actually Pat Ryan, who was the vice president at that point. He was sort of needling, you know, just a little bit, but he also has a strong sense of humor. He said, "Well, why is this? Why is there that arc that goes through the center?" And I said, "Well, that's tying the two ends of the table together, and it's also mirroring to an extent the curve of the outside, and it's in art, it's a da 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 da. It's a repetition of a theme, and that reinforces what you're saying. And if you have a particular element in one part of what you're building and you repeat it in another part, it is a reinforcement, and it will make a stronger statement." And I said, "But it ties the two ends together." He said, "Okay, well, that grain goes that way, but then it goes out as it goes to the outside." And I said, "Well, that addresses the participants around the table." Yeah, "Oh, okay. Is there anything else?" And I said, "Well, yes, as a matter of fact. You know, if there were an idea that was generated by a participant at the table and it was reflected off the arc, the parabola described by that arc, by that line, it would have a point of focus beyond the walls of the room." And he said, "Is it just me, or does anybody else here understand what the hell he's talking about?" The thing I was saying about the angle of the grain, this is exactly the same oak, the red oak, as the background. I just rotated the grain 50 degrees, or I'm sorry, 90 degrees. And I used flash so that this is vertical grain here, and so this is horizontal. And because the flash was taken perpendicular to that, that's why it lights up. And there's another one that's, you can see it at the far end. I've played around with aluminum, and this is the Minneapolis Red Cross donor wall when they did their new headquarters in 2000. There are this is probably one of the most complex pieces that I've done. There's 2,040 engraved nameplates. And it turns out that the Red Cross emblem, the Swiss cross, is actually comprised of 5 squares. They nest together in vertically ascending diagonals. And the aluminum is brushed aluminum. And think of that aluminum, that brushing, actually it's done with very large rollers of Scotch-Brite or a similar. So when the aluminum is made in the mill, the rollers that it goes through press it down further and further till you get to the final thickness that you need. But those rollers, it's all very hot, and those get corroded, and so over time there are pits and scratches and the normal wear and tear. So mill finish aluminum may or may not have a very attractive appearance. So it's brushed, and that gives that uniform scratch that it makes it so that it is uniform, and the whole batch will match from beginning to end. But think of those scratches as a complete set of very long, very thin mirrors. And as you orient those in different angles, they light or do not light. And in this case, you can see this cross here is at a specific angle, and the crosses that are around it are at differing angles. And there are 18 different orientations, and believe it or not, these are the names are in alphabetical order. Yeah, and the major donors are in the center. And with this, I once tried using aluminum and wood together, and aluminum it just overpowers everything else. So I don't mix them at all. And I learned an important design element from the architect who I was working with on this, and he said, well, you know, this, you got a 2-inch border here, have a 4-inch offset for that matting or the white. Having again, it's the 2 inches, then 4 inches. It ties together, and that's another thing that you can use as you're designing, keeping a constant within your design. As you walk past this thing, it's really pretty wild. And if a woman walks by with a green dress, you get flashes of green going all the way through it. This is how I got started in veneering. When my son was 5 years old, I decided it was time for us to spend some time together in a boat. I had a wholesale picture framing business, and it was actually for stained glass folks. And they, in the summer, in the fall, the winter, and the spring, they were down in the basement doing their stained glass like they should. And in the summer, they do silly things like go on vacation and swimming and that sort of stuff. So it didn't have anything to do in the summertime. But I had all the saws and the clamps and everything else. So I made a boat with, I put a piece of Lexan in the bottom. I had the seat that you could flip up and look down, and you could see underneath. And somebody wanted that boat, and they paid me money for it. So okay. And then next year I want to do a little bit bigger boat. And that was, the first boat it was a small one. It was 10 feet long because you could get 10-foot waterproof plywood. The next year I said, 12 feet. I got to do 12 feet because the 10-foot was just too small. But you can't get 12-foot waterproof plywood. At least I didn't find it. So I had to butt joint things together, and that would not have worked. I cover it with veneer. So that's how I got into veneering. And this was the boat that actually was, that's why I was invited to the governor's opener. At one point, a friend of mine said, Tom, you really should be in the boat show. And I said, oh, that sounds like a fun thing. I'll give him a call. So I called him up and I said, I'm interested in the boat show. And the person that answered said, well, good. Well, there are something like 400 exhibitors. 3 may not be back this year. And a 10-foot by 10-foot booth is $1,000. And if you give us a $500 deposit right now, you can be last in line because these other people are in front of you. And I said, what? Me pay you to be in the boat show? You'd have to pay me to be in the boat show. And the guy said, who am I talking to? And I said, well, you've never heard of me, but I do wooden boats, and I do some interesting things with them. I do life-size, lifelike game fish, and I inlay them on the inside, and I do some other things. And I said, well, do you have any pictures? I said, well, I'm in the Twin Cities. I could pull one of my boats down to your office, because they were on South Hennepin. So 3 guys came out and looked at it, and they said, do you have any other boats? And I said, well, I've got my studio in Northeast Minneapolis. Could we take a look? Well, sure. Well, when do you want to stop by? How about tomorrow morning? This sounds interesting. So they looked at the boats, and I had one under construction, and they went off to the side, and they said, okay, here's the deal. We'll give you 4,000. This was when the Metrodome was being built. Or it was in the Metrodome because they were redoing the convention center. We'll give you 4,000 square feet at home plate. We'll put you on the billboard. We'll have you be on the radio, TV, and the newspapers. You'll be the featured attraction, and we'll give you $2,400. That'll work. And every 4 minutes on the billboard at the Metrodome, it said, featured attraction, Tom Schrunk, Northern Rhapsody Boat Works. And I took a picture, and I told my wife, don't hold your breath until the next time that my name appears on the scoreboard at the Metrodome. But it was, this boat is in mahogany and avo de re, which is an African wood, and it's extremely lustrous. It's almost like gold. And when I spent 2 years in India, and right outside my room, I was in a line of apartments, and just outside my room was a Shiva temple, and that temple had an image, and the Indians, they gold leaf their religious images, and I got so that I really like that sort of, and it's a little squares of gold that they put on, and that square on square was just, it just struck me. And I had, when I was doing the this feature strip on the deck, I said, well, I've got some of this left over. I think I'll cut some squares, and I'll just put them together. Maybe it'll be like what I saw in India. And I did that. I started out, and then I said, well, rather than having everything go straight, I'll just cut some different angles. And I used blue masking tape, and I put everything together. And I said, well, okay, it works. But then I couldn't see it, with the blue tape on. I turned it over. I put it down by the doorway, and it had a door that was to the deck, so it went down to the ground. And I looked at it. Wow, there's some really nice radiance coming from that. And I walked around, and the whole thing shifted. The light in that, and that was the eureka moment. I said, this is something that I want to go into. And this is, well, you can see the walleye there. This is a smallmouth bass. There's back in the transom is a muskie, and there's a couple of little minnows that are just beyond its nose, just teasing it. Are
they made of unlike woods?
Yes. This is mahogany. This is avo de re. These are, I think, sapele homily, which is it's sort of like a burl, but it's very, very convoluted. It's got a lot of features in it. The fish, of course, are a number of different species. One of the things that I did when I used a technique that I saw that it was called the patch pad technique, where you do take a number of pieces of cardstock, like from cereal boxes. It's about the same thickness as the veneer, and you do make photocopies of what you're going to be doing. In this case, it was one of these fish, and for each part, and we'll just take the belly and part of the well, behind the gill, that would be one piece. Cut out a piece that's larger than that on one of those 5 or 6 layers of this cardstock, and you put different parts, you cut into those and tape them together, and then with a scroll saw you follow the design that you then paste on the top, and you cut everything apart, and you've got all of these pieces that you put together then, and you come up with the design that you originally started with. The one thing that happens is you've got the curve of the saw, of the blade that you had. So you have a dark line, and that's sort of a Walt Disney drawing type thing. But in some cases, that is a graphic assist. You can read things more clearly from a distance. Yeah. You had a question?
Does this boat actually go in the water?
Yeah. Yes.
And how do you waterproof it?
Actually, this is done with its West system, the wood epoxy saturation technique. And with that, you coat each piece of wood with epoxy on all sides before you join it to the next piece, so that water can't get in, but also the water that's in can't get out. So it's extremely stable. And then on the outside, you really can't see it because there's 4-ounce fiberglass cloth that's put on it. And when you wet out fiberglass, especially something like 4 ounce, which 4 ounces per square foot, I believe, it becomes water clear. You really can't see that there is a covering. It's just.
How many boats did you build, Tom?
I did a total of 5, and then I got busy with other things. But I did have this boat I kept really for a number of years, and about 5 years ago, a guy offered me real money to take it off my hands. We became friends. Yeah. This is a table that that was in Northern Woods. The segments are in African rosewood or Timaway. The center is maple burl, and you can see it really has a 3-dimensional look to it. And part of it is because of the graphic effect of these lines going at 90-degree angles, but those 90-degree angles do something else. It's that light dark, the maximum and minimum reflectance bring the luster back out. So it looks much more 3-dimensional. It's actually as flat as a pancake, but there's also, it is surrounded with ebony. And one of the things about we as humans, we are diurnal predators. And as such, our eyes are attracted by light and movement. If you're in a room and there's a light that goes on someplace, if it's dark, you have no choice. You're going to look at that light. Or if you're just sitting there and something moves over here, you look at it. We're predators. We're not prey. We are apex predators. But getting back, what does that mean for doing artwork or building something. Because our eyes are attracted by light, you put something dark around the part that you wish to have be the subject matter. It'll work every time. I use maple burl in the center because if there were something, if anything that was linear, it would have a particular, it would introduce a direction of grain, and this is radially symmetrical. So you couldn't have something that had direction in the middle. So the burl was what worked. There's another thing about us as humans. We are the most curious of creatures. We look at something, and as soon as our brain figures out what it is, we look for something else. But we are obsessed with balance. And so when you book match something, the Rorschach, you get that bilateral symmetry. We find that very, very pleasing. And the most compelling image for a human is a human face, bilaterally symmetrical. I would also say that if you work with burl, when you book match burl, that is something that there are knots that appear here and there randomly, swirls, but when you book match those, our brain, there's no way that you can say, oh, I see that. I know why that happened. I got it all figured out. You can't figure out. There's no way that you can logically say, I know why this happened. And if you do something in book match burl, it will stay visually fresh for the rest of your life. It takes me a while to get things all out. Okay, this is in 1-inch squares. Again, a dark frame in ebony. This is maple burl. It's just a pair of nesting chairs that I did for a neighbor, a very nice lady who teaches at the University of Minnesota. I went to the company that I was working for which was a mistake. They had a calendar, and one of the things that they had on in this calendar, it was all wood projects, and there was a piano. It was a Steinway piano, and wow, that would be a project. And so I went to the Steinway website, and there was a little button that said contact us, and I sent a message, and I said, I'm a veneer artist, and I have a technique that you may not have seen. It may be appropriate to your product. Who should I be in contact with? And they said, well, A. Horbachevsky at steinway.com. So I sent a note, and I got the next day a note saying, certainly would be happy to take a look at your works. Please send pictures to this address. And I said, well, I'll be happy to send pictures, but the thing that I'm interested in is how the piece changes as the light changes as you move past it. So a photograph will be like a still from a movie. I'll send you a sample. So I did this. The sample that I sent him is 36 by 36 in 2-inch squares, and with the this is in Avodere again with the Macquarie Steinway logo. And after I sent that, about 6 weeks later, I got a call, and they said, if you were to do a piano, what would it look like? And I said, well, I'll send you some sketches. And so I did some sketches, and they got back and they said, we've approved of your sketches. I said, or we've approved your design. I said, that wasn't a design, that was a sketch. I said, well, come on to the come on to the factory. We want to talk to you. And the factory is in Queens. It's about a 5-minute drive from LaGuardia. So it was super easy to get there. I flew to Midway, and from Midway, it's straight to LaGuardia. And when they had an idea of what my stuff looked like. They said, well, why don't you come? We'd like you to talk to some of the guys in the boardroom. And I went into the boardroom, and there's the president and the CFO and all these vice presidents. And there on the boardroom wall of the Steinway boardroom is my piece. I was floating. But it was very interesting because they had not known or considered that wood as a lustrous material and using luster as an active design element. And I was sitting there with these guys and they were learning something. It was just amazing. But I will say these guys were marvelous to work with. I say this all the time. They were competent, they're professional. They don't have to prove anything to anybody. They would be sitting and talking with us and totally unpretentious, but they're cream of the crop. Very good folks. So, their poor company has gone from one buyer to another. I think CBS was the first one that bought Steinway from the original owners. And I did meet Henry Steinway before he passed away. And he was the last of the original family Steinway. They kept him on as a figurehead. But I believe it was CBS. They used it as a cash cow. And this was in the 70s. And the quality just went way down. So the used Steinways from that period are not worth nearly what other Steinways are worth. It's been purchased by other investment groups. I don't know, it's 5 or 6 or maybe more. It's a popular business to want to own, evidently. But it used to be that if you were anybody of means, one of the things that you had in your home, probably in the great room of your home, was a Steinway piano. And times have changed. And Steinway is, they're not doing nearly as many pianos as they did. This is the factory. It's a marvel. It's been built onto time and time again. I'm in my studios in the Northrop King building in Northeast Minneapolis. Very, very similar to the interior of the factory in Queens. This is the Reflections, the first piano that I did for them. And I did this is in ribbon stripe sapele, 2-inch squares. That's sort of my signature size. But you can see there's a flow pattern in the center. It's what I call my fountain pattern, where it's vertical in the center and it gradually goes out as a fountain. This is the same thing, but coming out with a much more active curvature and then recurving. But it's again that da 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 da. It's a change. It's a repetition of a theme, and this curve goes up and comes down. It goes up, around, and it's regular in how it does that. It makes changes at regular intervals. That is the rhythms. So, and I told them I'm using rhythm and variations on a theme and putting those into a wood veneer idiom. And they were the type of folks that would appreciate that. Yeah.
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
Did you do that piano in Minneapolis or New York, and where is it now?
I cannot tell you where it is now.
You know.
I do the veneers here. Well, I did. They've stopped altogether doing art case pianos now. but I do the veneers here. Incidentally, when you do a veneer face, that is the assembly of all the pieces that are taped together, ready to press onto the substrate. You always make them oversized by a ½ an inch or 1 inch or whatever, because when you're pressing, sometimes it can squirm or you have difficulty aligning it before. As soon as it touches the glue, you're not going to move it. So you always make things a little bit oversized and then trim to size. So all the parts all those veneer faces are done. I would do them here, then make a large box and send them off, except for the rim. The rim is, I think it comes in about 10.5 inches high. And it's 17 feet all the way around from shoulder to shoulder. I would do the rim 12 inches high, and then they would press it onto the rim and trim it from there. The first one that I did, I put all the parts in the van and in my van and drove it into Queens. And they wanted me to supervise the pressing of the rim and of the lid, because the lid, there's one design that's on the top and another design that's on the underside, because when it lifts up, as you're looking at it, lifts up, there's a flap, elegantly named, that comes over, and the registration has to be exact on that. The upper there's a 3/8 of an inch gap on the underside and on the top that have to be dead on, because that's where the hinge goes. That's where they cut that out. You can't have deviation. And when I did that, and they said, well, we liked the first one, we'd like you to do another one. I said, okay, fine. You want me to come and supervise? And they said, no, we watched what you were doing. So to do an art case piano, the rim, actually, that 17-foot rim is the first thing that they want, because they do the rim first on a Steinway. I just rolled it up and put it in a 14 by 14 by 14 box with styrofoam peanuts in it, and it got there, no problem. The thing that they do is when they make the rim, they have the gluing machine has 2 rollers that go in the same direction, above and below, that have glue on them, and the various pieces of it's rock maple, and they're spliced together to make that 17 feet. That's for the Model B. The Model D is the very long stretch limousine. That's the concert grand, and they consider that of awkward proportion for the piano. The one that I was fortunate enough to be working on is the Model B, which is the next one down, and they consider that to be the ideal proportion for a piano, and they're right. But to make the rim, they put the outside veneer down on the outfeed table, and on the infeed table, they have all the component parts, and I think there's something like 14 1/8-inch pieces. That there's a foot that goes around the outside, the inside, and then the rest is it's really beefy, and they feed it through and then lay it down each, and all those pieces, and it's heavy. They have 5 guys pick it up, and they described it. And next comes what we call the Fred Flintstone part of the process, where these guys pick it up and they force it onto the rim press. And the rim press is exactly the size or the shape of whichever size piano they're making. And there's an alignment mark on the outside veneer that they that they align with that mark on the rim press, and then they force it in place, and then they have calls that are the exact shape of the rim at that point. And there's probably 15 different calls that are that shape. They put that in and it takes 8 hours. It's a urea formaldehyde adhesive. And once it's together, it is together from that day forward. But there's a lot of water that's in those rims, and it has to cure. It has to get rid of the water the excess water that's in it. And they lay all of these rims out one after another. There'll be several hundred of these in a room, all drying, and they're laying on the base side with the treble side coming up. You could chin yourself on these things. They are so strong. But one of the things that happens is as they are drying, as they're curing, and as they're finding their way, some of those rims, the one end will toe up or curve in a little bit or out. But they cannot put the art veneer on the outside. There's 600, 800, I don't know how many pieces of how many squares I had on what I did, but that it would have totally torn it apart with trying to put that on when they were doing the original gluing up of the rim. But what they do is they go through the rims that are cured and look for one that is absolutely perfect. There's no deviation, no bending or twisting. And on average, it's about 1 in 400 that is good enough to use. If it has any deviation at all, it will not fit on the rim press, because they have to use the rim press to get the art veneer on.
The question I had is, I know nothing about veneering. So this is, we're always talking about your 2-inch squares, but I'm looking at a surface that's way bigger than 2-inch squares. How do you get all those 2-inch squares perfectly aligned, glued together with no spaces, all that sorts of stuff?
Well, it was, as with anything, there are ways, and it took me a while to figure it out, but the professional secret, do the first row. And when I do this, I draw it out, and I have, as I mentioned, 10-degree increments. And I have at the bottom of the paper, I have an old Mac Mini, because it's got Apple Works 6, which is a drawing program that they don't have anymore. But I draw out the shape of the project that I'm going to be doing with the squares, and I use the running bond or bricklayer's unit. But one square is, each row is offset by 1/2 unit. So it goes like that. We're upright creatures. We see the horizon, we see telephone lines. We kind of white out horizontals. We pay much more attention to verticals and diagonals than we do to horizontals. So whenever possible, it's going to be a horizontal line that we're used to seeing. If the continuous line were vertical, we would tend to see that. And one of the things that I will say is, if the viewer looks at what you have done, and the thing that strikes them first is the mechanical assembly of it, you failed as an artist. You may have created something that hangs together very well, but in this case, it is the optics, it is the aesthetic that you're interested in. So these are horizontals. I do the first line, but I've set up on the edge of my workbench a stop that is, actually I use a strip of adhesive backed aluminum that I make sure is exactly 90 degrees from the edge. I put that square up to the edge, and then just sand the edge. And even because in doing these, I will cut 330-degree angles, and then 320 40-degree angles and so forth. But it's going to take a while to do that, and they're going to dry out or take on moisture during that process. And something that starts out as a really nice square, but it's a 30-degree, any change in humidity is going to take that and change it. So you have to dress those edges and make sure that all those vertical edges are vertical one after another. And then you've got that line that is a straight line, except the bottom is now going like that. Got a long sanding bar. And I put it on the table, clamp it down, and then make sure that that bottom is straight. There's no gaps. When I do the next line, the next row, I sand the top of that before I join it to the top row, sand the lower edge, and then just keep building from there.
So are you just making the veneer layer in doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You're gluing square to square.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not gluing them together. I'm taping them together using veneer tape. I did a 3 of what was called the Europa series. That was I used Carpathian elm burl for the center of the panels and walnut burl for the outside. But you can see it was kind of like working with lace. There were a lot of holes in this, and it meant there was going to be a lot of repairs. All of those had to be filled. And if you're not familiar with Carpathian elm burl, it is a brown, almost always a brown, that varies from light tan to medium brown, brick red, to almost jet black. It's all over the map. And so all of these parts that are missing had to be replaced with something. And I replaced all of those holes using walnut burl. Using burl is the walnut burl. It was convoluted, and it was not. If it were uniform in appearance, it would call attention to itself, because the background Carpathian elm burl was going every which way. And if you got an area that's just static, it's all the same, it calls attention to itself. Incidentally, if you've got, you can see here across the booking line, 2 pieces are gone. So you just use 2 pieces of walnut burl. Sometimes you'll have only one of those on that booking line, one that falls out. And so what do? If you use walnut burl in the other one, it's not going to match. And the solution is you knock out the good one too, and you replace both of them with walnut burl, and then it works out. The technique of doing the repair is to put a piece of blue tape on the show face of the veneer. The glue face goes on the underside. The show face is what people see. And when you're doing repair, any cutting that you do, you want to do on the glue face, because you're going to mess up. The knife is going to go further than you really wanted it to. You may as well have the mistakes be where nobody's going to see them. The other thing that happens is when you put blue tape on, and there's a hole there, as you're repairing, you see that little irregular spot of blue. That's where you need to be going. So it's, and when you put a piece of repair veneer in there, it sticks down. And then you put just a little dab of Tite Bond 2 or whatever on a screwdriver, a flat screwdriver, and just wipe it on and glue it down, and you're good to go. And this is in process. This is the upper part of the lid. You can see the repairs, and this is book matched, and it doesn't show up big from this angle, but these actually are angled. This was with a wide angle lens. They're actually angled in so that the booking lines, when they get trimmed to size, point at the seated pianist. And this is, of course, this is upside down now. This is the glue face. And the one of the things that happens with doing book matching is when you have a number of pieces. First of all, when the burl is sliced, you get one after another of those slices, and it comes to you in a packet that is in sequence. But if you were to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you'd have 1 besides 7, and there's definitely going to be a growth difference there that you're really going to see. And so the thing that you do is what's called sequence jumping. You don't do things in a linear fashion, such as this. And in this case, I'd started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it was those were done on a diagonal sequencing, and there is difference along this line, but it's the same difference here and the same amount of difference here. So there is a uniformity, even though there's no way to make it perfect, but you can make it so that the differences are not something that really draws the eye. There's a uniformity to it. This is the Carpathian elm, and then adding the walnut pearl, and just as I mentioned before, with using ebony for the exterior of that round table and those nesting chairs, that dark border, it draws the eye to the subject matter, which is the interior Carpathian elm. And this is, again, this is the show face, and there's some tricks in doing the book matching. Getting book matching here is that's no problem. This is a 90-degree corner. This is, I think, a 92-degree angle.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is the show face.
This is the glue face.
Oh, you said show face a
I'm
second
sorry.
ago.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say, what's holding it together?
Yeah. There's veneer tape on the other side.
Okay,
Okay.
and that veneer tape sticks well enough to all of that stuff that it doesn't come apart?
Nope, actually, to flip it over, grab one side and grab the other, and then pull it up in the air and let it come down.
Okay.
You swallow hard as you're doing it. The underside of the lid was done the same way, but in this case, well, the lid, the upper side was in a fan motif. The underside is a fan motif. And again, it's that repetition of a theme. And this was to emulate the sound coming up and spreading out and going to the audience. The music desk, in this case, I'm not sure just where the center is, but this is also using that same fan technique. And I mentioned sequence jumping a bit earlier. If you went 1, 2, 3, 4, across, there may be a very particular eye-catching feature over there that would disappear by the time you got here. So what do? You start in the center, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when you're doing sequence jumping, on something such as this, it's interesting because there's one side will be all even numbers, the other side will be all odd numbers. And it works that way every time. Should have oriented it the other way. This is making of the rim. This is Carpathian elm, walnut burl, and then this is a fillet, which is just a separator band between the interior feature piece and the exterior. And I did this in ribbon stripe sapele because that was my first piano, and this was referencing the first piano. I was the artist. I could do that. This is the completed rim, and I drew that out so that I could make it so that it was truly straight, and if there was deviation, they would never get it on the rim. Jason, you had a question.
How are you making truly straight 17-foot lines?
With the
You don't have a giant sanding.
no, I actually took a string line, a chalk line, and snapped that, and then if the piece didn't line up, I would cut it apart, sand a little bit until it was close enough to look like it was where it should be. Oh, incidentally, the rim veneer was the first thing that they wanted, because that had to go on because for the curing of the rim, before they could do the machining of the rim to put on the other parts, it had to be ready to accept those parts, because as soon as you machine something, other parts of that rim might move. So I don't know what they've got a recipe. Maybe it's 2 months and 3 days, or 30. I don't know what it is, but they do things by the book. This is in the studio. This is I did sweep up a little bit. It didn't look like this all the time, and it still doesn't. This is in the Steinway factory. They had put some the first seal coat on the rim and on the lid, and this is Europa 1, part of the rim detail. The upper surface was done. The inside of the rim is also veneered. This is the fall board that comes down. And one of the things that they said was, Tom, were you thinking of signing the piece? And I said, well, yes, I was thinking of that. So where would you sign it? I was thinking, well, it's lower right side of the fall board. And the guy who was in charge of Horbatevsky said, well, that's a very good location, but there is one thing. The Steinway logo that we put on our pianos, it's actually brass and it's three-dimensional. The pieces are, those letters are triangular and they're pressed in place. It's a soft brass and it's sanded smooth. But we always put that in the center of the fall board. That wouldn't be a problem, would it? They're marvelous to work with. My signature is just off to the side, and these are all Steinway's photographs. Oh, and here you can see fairly well the angle change of the fan in the upper on the music desk. When I sign in gold. Not quite as fancy as it sounds. I use gold leaf. And Charlie, I have to give you credit because you pointed me at a book on gold leafing. And in that book, it said one of the things that you have to do is be sure that you don't have a bubble when you're putting on the gold size, because if you have a bubble, as the size sets up, it will burst and you'll have a holiday. There'll be no gold size there. And the gold won't take it. Actually, gold size is just a very sticky glue. It stays sticky for a good while, but you lay the gold leaf on it and it adheres. And I said, oh, the holiday, that's not a problem. That's an opportunity. So really what I did was I just took an ink pen and dipped it into gold size, signed my name, and you wait for 5 to 8 minutes or 10 minutes for that to set up so that it's now tacky, not wet. And then you lay the gold on it, and you take the gold leaf is on a piece of paper, and you lay it down and press it and take it up, and you get this irregular ripping of it. Takes a quarter of that leaf or so. You take a brush, just a paintbrush, a cheap paintbrush, and you brush it, and you get this gold snow that's flying around, and there's your name in gold. It's a wonderful thing. I always do it just before the final top coat, because you could scratch it, and you could scratch it off. I just signed a piece yesterday, as a matter of fact. And there's Steinway had this photograph on their website for 3 years. And they had Europa was their was also on their website for 3 years. So I owe them a lot. Going on to other projects, I was asked to do some stand-up paddle boards. And so this is getting going. We'll go through these fairly quickly. I've been asked to do things that are aesthetically really, you want to be upper bracket to the best of your ability. And here I was asked to do something that was really fun and graphic and simple, and it was just a blast. This is, I think, about 30 inches wide by, I don't remember how long it was. This is, it's in the vacuum bag. You can see the vacuum gauge at one end. At the other end is where I stick the vacuum hose in. The vacuum gauge at this end lets you know that you've got it sealed. And to do something of this size, you can't get a bag that's that big. And so the simple way around it is to get a piece of poly sheeting from Home Depot that's a little bit wider and a little bit longer than what you want to press. One piece underneath, one piece on top, and then you latex caulk around the outside to seal it. And don't get the expensive stuff, get the cheapest stuff that doesn't want to flow. The really good stuff, it'll seep in and you don't want it to seep, you want it to just stay there. And I've done things that are 16 feet with no problem. You can do heroic size pieces using this technique. This is the completed face, and this is the show face because the veneer tape is on the other side. This is the completed, I think it's about 14 feet long, something like that. And this. What did you make that of? This is Avo de Re mahogany, and this is a black dyed wood. I get the black dyed wood from Certainly Wood in New York. Certainly Wood is they have excellent quality wood with veneers. I have nothing but good things to say about them. If you're ever in any question about where to get something and it's for a good project, I would tell you to go to Certainly Wood. And incidentally, the cost of, you'll pay more if you go to Certainly Wood but not really that much more. there's so much more that goes into the cost of production in terms of your time and so forth. The cost of the veneer is probably, even for really good veneer, is probably no more than 10% of the total cost. So get the very best that you can. This avodir, oh yeah, avodure, and actually this was probably holly and walnut. I don't remember quite what it was that I did for that. This is also mahogany, holly, and no, I'm sorry, this was maple, but same difference. And these were sold to through a guy that was selling these things in Bend, Oregon. This is a table that I did for well, this table was intended for a guy who was Entrepreneur of the Year, Minnesota Entrepreneur of the Year. It's Carpathian elm burl and walnut burl. I'm a stick in the mud. I use that all the time. And what he wanted was an oval. They wanted was an oval table with 2 leaves in the center. And so I worked it out so that the two leaves would book match with each other and then book match with the outside. But when you took those out, they would also be book matched properly. And the company that was going to be, well, I got it pressed and I was going to have it machined it was oversized, so it had to be cut into an oval and so forth. And they said, well, we're really busy. Do you have a timeline? I said, no, not really. I had like 3 months to get things done. I said, okay, well, we'll just store it for a bit. And we'll store it with the veneer side down so that we don't, if something falls on it, won't damage it. Good idea. I got a call. Tom, yeah, we've got a problem. I said, oh, a problem. How much of a problem? A real problem. I said, okay, what is it? I said, well, we told one of the guys we had too much stuff laying around and we needed to clear out some of the stuff that wasn't being used. And he didn't realize that that was the table. And so he took those, what were the leaves, took them to the table saw, cut them into 3-inch strips and threw them in the dumpster. So I did a second table, but I had those 2 ends that I was able to put together, and it found another buyer. But I did have that same company. That same company had me do a conference table for, it was a Fortune 500 company. And the table was 99 inches by 22 feet. And it was essentially 6 4x8 sheets, but one, it was straight, curved, straight. And then an interior that was, yeah, it went from it was pointed and then went up and out. And the interior had to be, those pieces were book matched and butt matched. Same on the exterior. And I was sweating bullets and I got it done. And thank God. And yeah, because each piece is a little bit oversized, I had to know where they were going to be cutting so that the lines would meet up. When things are easy, you don't grow. And I got a call and they said, Tom, really sorry, we're gonna have to redo that table. I said, oh no, what did I do? And I said, oh, you didn't do anything wrong. They did the wrong color. They stained it the wrong color. So I did a second one. And I sweating bullets again. And they said, okay, good, we'll press it, but we know what color it's going to be. It'll be a while. And I was doing this for Navy Island Plywood. And Navy Island said, Tom, we'd like to tell people that you're the person that's doing this. And I said, no, don't do that, because the thing that's going to happen is they're going to, instead of paying your price, they're going to say, let's just go to this guy and just pay him without paying somebody else double to have him do it. So they didn't, this company, believe it or not, is no longer in business, that was making this large table. I did the second one for Navy Island, and I got a call, and I said, "Oh, what's the problem?" Oh no, I'll have to back up a bit. I went into this company at one point, and to talk about another project. I said, "Tom, we got to show you something in the back room." I said, okay, and they took me back and they lifted the drape on, or the cover on this. There's the table. Look at this, isn't that something? I said, yeah, that's pretty nice. But then I got a call and I said, Tom, got to do it again. And I said, oh no, what happened? They said, well, they used pocket screws to hold. It was a 3-inch solid mahogany edge going around the outside, and they used screws that were too long. And so every 8 inches in the veneer, it popped up all the way along. So I went in and I said, okay, guys, I did this. Okay, here's what you do. You're going to have to do some refinishing, but take a hot iron and iron it down. And you should take the screws out, iron it down, and you may be able to get it to the point where you'll be able to sand it, not go through, and refinish it, and it'll be okay. Okay, we'll do that. They did it. I got a call. Tom, got to redo that table. What happened? Why? What? I saw it. I said, well, they had it in their workshop, but they had part of the corner was sticking out into the traffic lane, and a guy hit it with a forklift and knocked the corner off. I did a third one, sweating bullets. They got it pressed, and it was pressed by Navy Island. It went to the cabinet shop. Tom, need to do another one. What happened this time? Well, they gave it to a new guy on the CNC, and he misread the dimensions, so he cut it 6 inches too small, 3 inches on it. Oh God. And then they gave me a call and they said, Tom, it's okay. They decided to give the original table to this company for a discount. Oh, and I have other stories, but I digress. This is just a simple little piece. Design-wise, there's a radial background, which it's sort of a sunburst, and it really makes the image in the center be much more compelling. It really brings it as the center of attention. And I did something with the lettering, and I'll just send these around. I've taken this is plywood that I've made by just taking several pieces of veneer and grain one way, grain the other way, grain the first way, grain the second way, and then cutting letters out. And by doing that and I used 3M VHB, very high bond adhesive on the backside. And after the piece was varnished to completion, I stuck these letters on, and they stand proud of the surface, and it presents very, very well. And that's one of the things about veneer is you have such an incredible variety of finish of colors and textures and species. It's marvelous. This is 1 inch squares, and I'm doing the same technique, 10-degree increments, and then sand shading these pieces in between. Sand shading is when you take a piece of veneer and you have a pot of sand. Traditionally, it is sand that you heat, and then you stick the veneer in, and the sand is hot enough that it scorches the veneer, and it tones the edge, and it gives a very three-dimensional appearance. I mean, it looks like it's going over and under, and of course, they're all just flat as a pancake. One of the things about that is the scorching is from the outside in. And of course, when you're doing this, and you press it, you get, you sand it, you're going to remove some of the scorching. So whatever you start out with that scorch, you end up with just a little bit less. But it's irregular, and even though the amount here is different than that amount there, or whatever it is, it's all random, so that really kind of all fits together. This is a table that I did for some folks that Jason and I did projects for. They're on Lake Minnetonka. I say this all the time, they're honest billionaires and the nicest folks you'd ever meet. This is their dining room table. This is in 2 inch squares of Indian rosewood with, what do you think I put on the outside? Walnut burl. I titled this Light from the Lake, because they had a window wall looking over on Lake Minnetonka. And on this is the glue face, so you don't see all the veneer tape on the other side. There was a fireplace here, so we didn't want that water. It was being deflected. It didn't want to go near that fire, so that's the reason for this particular design. Actually, I believe this is catalyzed lacquer. I did not do the finish, and I would say this, that I am good at veneering. When it comes to casework or finishing or other parts, I'm just average. The best possible finish is the project is when I hand it off to someone who's really good at the next step.
And, when you started talking, you showed us that tree, you talked about the luminescence of
Yeah.
wood. Does the finish affect that luminescence?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it is an optical quality, or it is an optical property. And the very best optics come from the very best lens, and the very best lens is a gloss finish. If it's a satin or a matte, that the surface is actually bumpy on a satin or a matte, and the light goes in and it gets diffused and it hits those cells, it's diffused, and then comes up and diffuses even more. So any kind of luster, any kind of directional quality that it has is lessened by the degree of how far you get away from gloss, whether it's semi-gloss, satin, or matte. However, that gloss finish is, it shows every fingerprint, it shows every piece of dust, and it's, a scratch will be, it will show that immediately. My advice is use the highest gloss that you can get by with. So for a tabletop, if you use gloss, you're in trouble. If it's something that's going to hang on the wall, go for it. Go for it. You can really make that thing sing. Yeah,
Can you wax silver?
yes, you can.
So something like Renaissance wax that doesn't fingerprint would protect it. with a high-
Well, it would, but actually wax is a much better finish for wood than it is for veneer. And wax actually is, in terms, and when you're thinking of finishes, think of vapor barrier.
Why did I meant put the wax over wax?
Oh, yeah, certainly you could do that.
just
Yeah.
to protect it?
It would, yes, and that would do a very good job. Yeah, that's, I think in the case of this, they had placemats and so forth to protect. This is 60 inches by 124 inches. And when that was pressed, you put the, when you glue, you put the glue on the core. And then when you've got, and because as soon as the veneer, and veneer is like a cellulose sponge, as soon as it touches it, it wants to start to curl. So you have to get it right the first time. You have one chance to do it right. And to do this, I had 3 friends come and said, okay, we'll do a trial run and we'll put one corner down and the other 3 are held up, the second corner down, third and fourth. We'll make sure that it doesn't, the belly doesn't come and touch the surface, what will be the glue surface. We did a trial run and it didn't work. We did 4 trial runs before I said, okay, now we can do it. And it worked. After I did this, they said, well, we're building another home, Tom, and the next, actually 60 inches is too wide. It's hard to pass across the table, 57 inches, but we want it longer. So it was, they added another 3 inches to the end. I got into doing birds. This is taken from a Japanese screen. And this is just straight up marquetry.
Hey, Tom, quick question.
Yeah.
So on those like bigger tables, like the one you were showing, and you've got all these piecewise squares, obviously when you tape them together, you're gonna have no gaps. What happens if the gap opens up once you actually, when you're actually gluing it down? Because I'd imagine some gaps might appear.
I use, there are several types of veneer tape that you can get. And you can get various widths and you can get perforated tape. Perforated tape has all sorts of perforations, which are holes where no adhesion and no strength can be had. I use just plain tape with no holes in it at all. And it's actually quite strong. And when you get this tape, you can imagine how many pieces of tape are on that thing. Even if there's one of the joints failed or it came loose, there's three that are tight, holding it against the others that are tight. And it's really not a problem. You really rarely have a problem if you're using a good veneer tape.
Tom, what is the core or the base beneath the veneer on that table?
This is a piece of 3/4 inch MDF, and there's the outer side has, the outer edge has a 3-inch piece of 3/4 inch MDF glued to it so that it gives a thicker, a stronger, more appropriate edge. And then there's this, because of the size of this thing, it had a steel subframe that fit into that. and then there were, well, a number of other things, but. Oh, yeah, it's heavy. Yeah. You do it at one shot, the whole thing at once. Yeah, and it's a heart stopper. Yeah.
So if you put that veneer on that core of that table.
Yeah.
Is it a little bit wider and then you trim it with a router on the edges? How do you finish the edge?
Okay, that's a good question. This was 60 inches wide. I did the veneer at 61 inches wide, and it turned out that the core was 61 inches and by 125, so that in the shop they could trim a ½ inch off all the way around and get right where they wanted to be.
And the trimming process was?
That was on a table saw.
Table saw.
Yeah, because it was bonded down, and so it was. And they have the shop that did this had a sliding table saw that was up to the task. It was done right.
What does the edge look like there?
Well, it's just
Another piece of laminate?
for the edge. When the edge is put on, I use 2-ply veneer. I take 2 pieces of veneer, and rather than a single piece. If you use a single piece of veneer, you can come to the edge and make it go vertical, so you'd have a waterfall edge, which is really very nice. One of the things that'll happen is if you have a piece of veneer on the top and a piece of veneer on the edge, you have a sharp 90-degree corner, and anything that hits that will dent. A sharp 90-degree corner is very, very tender in terms of being able to accept any kind of a knock. As soon as you round it over, you make it much sturdier. So doing a 2-ply, you have 1 on the top and 2 on the edge, and you can round that over just a bit, and it doesn't have to be that much, but that gives you a whole bunch of leeway. And it's also much kinder on the elbow. How are we doing for time? I only have 35 more slides here. I got into doing birds. This is a 3-legged chicken. This was also in Northern Woods, Charlie. The top was in cherry, figured maple for the wings. The wings come down. The tail. This is in dive break mode. Those 2 outsides, they fold back, and so that the tail is at 45 degrees, or it'll lay down flat so that you can put your martini there. It's 16 inches high, 54 inches long, 52 inches from wingtip to wingtip, and the head is life size. I worked with chickens for 2 years in India, and my respect for the intelligence of a chicken doesn't go very far. And here's that chicken protecting the corner of the loft of the attorney that purchased it. Oh, and here you can see the tail in the 45-degree angle mode. Room divider in a geometric. Bloodwood table. Oh, incidentally, this is in bloodwood with maple. It's a fun little table. The second piano that I did for Steinway, I did in bloodwood, but the advertising flyers that they put out, they said they called it Reflections in Cardinal Wood. Oh, here's that darn table again. Those same people in Minnetonka, that did the table, Mike said, you know, I really like to have a pool table. I've never done a pool table. Well, I'd like you to do a pool table. Okay, anything in particular? Yeah, I wanted ebony. It's in ebony. It's probably, I don't know how many ebony pool tables there are in the US, but I don't think there's many. There's a piece of blackwood that is on the upper corner and on the lower corner. So, because I wanted to be, we went to Peter's Billiards and we were looking at tables. He said, you know, there's this one table that's got a bevel and then vertical. I want you to do that. So that's about a 3/4 by 3/4 piece of this blackwood. And to get the blackwood, I had to get a piece that was 2 inches by 8 inches by 8 feet, and it was $1,000. You want to make sure you cut it right the first time.
Remember the selling price of that ebony table?
Plenty.
You have to ask.
Yeah. Yes. This is an offset radial table that was based on in the summertime, I'm an archaeological photographer. I've been doing it since 1969. My wife is an archaeologist, and she has a dig on a little island about 20 miles off of the coast of Croatia. It's a Roman site, and there are mosaics there. Very little, very, very little that's intact. It's mostly, you find just the tessera, the little cubes. But I got interested in Roman mosaics, and I was looking in, I did a Google image search of Roman mosaics, and there was this one of where the head of Medusa was in the center, and there were these arcs that were going all the way around. I said, wow, that would be a really, really nice table. So that was sort of the inspiration for this. And it doesn't show up really well because the light is coming from several directions, but you can see bright, bright, not as bright, not as bright. And that's because of the angle of the veneer. And that's tiger maple or figured maple, which is rippling. And because of that ripple, the light, you don't have as focused a bright area and as dark, a dark area with figured wood as you would with something that is just, normal straight grain. I have 3 cars. I've got a Honda, that's my Model H. I've got a Nissan, that's my Model N. And then I have an electric, that's my Model T.
Do you ever work with bird's eye maple?
Oh, yes, actually, I'm doing a dining table right now for a friend of mine that's, he has a house up north that's Prairie School, and he wanted a dining table that would be fitting for that. And I said, well, how about something like a Frank Lloyd Wright stained glass window? And so the main part is all the background is bird's eye maple. He got from Certainly Wood, and they're not paying me, the most intense bird's eye I've ever seen in my life. And with mahogany for all the lead lines. These are some riser covers. There's steps and risers. And this is my son's house in San Francisco. And he's going to be getting a box with 2 more of these next week. And I brought one of these along. I don't know. You can come up later and take a look at it, but you should be getting some difference in lighting as I do this. And just to give you, unless you're up really pretty close, this is the pattern that I use. You make multiples of this, and you can come and take a look later. We're running out of time. I tend to I tend to do this, I'm sorry. But I think we're pretty much at the end. This is a 12-foot wing that was at the airport, thanks to the good folks at Wood Zest. It's a group of artists in the that are most, I think everybody's guild members, aren't they, Jason? And they got together and got the airport to sponsor this. So anyway, that's my story, folks. Thanks for.
Tom, we got one question from our Zoom viewers
Yes,
asking, are you going to do any classes that they can sign up for?
I am planning on doing classes, probably starting in probably in February. So yes, the thing to do would be to just get in touch with me, and it's probably going to be limited to 4 persons at a time. And that will be at my studio in the Northrop King building, probably on Wednesday evenings, 7 until 9. That's tentative. Probably it will be that, but I don't have anything. It'd be a 4 weeks is what that normally does.
Surface, but I had a project where I did bentwood lamination, and I was more interested in trying to find. Of course, I did a veneer, a finished veneer over the top, but I was more interested in the substrate veneers, and I had the hardest time finding a good resource for that. And I know that I could do more research for it.
But
if a
you're
project
looking
comes
for the
along with it.
substrate?
Well, it was a bentwood lamination, so I wanted, like more heavier core material for that. Like I was making my own plywood, only I was bending it.
Yeah.
And I needed, it wasn't just like a strip, like a leg. It was it was a bigger surface area, like a chair back or something like that.
Okay.
And I couldn't find a reasonable source for those loose veneers that make up the substrate. I think it's more of an industrial thing. It's really hard to find in the kind of the prosumer market.
Yeah, I've used bending ply for things.
That's what I ended up using.
Yeah.
Frustration.
Yeah, the bending ply is it's a plywood that's a very, very soft, an extremely soft wood on the top and on the bottom, and then a layer of veneer in the middle, but you can bend it very easily on one axis only. But you take 2 of those and put them together and glue them, and it gets very, very firm. The downside of that is because that wood is very, very soft, you're not going to get a really smooth surface. And the cure for that is it's possible to get 16th inch MDF. And so you put 16th inch MDF that you then glue your veneer to. And then you get a nice product. Oh, I
got one last question for you, Tom, from the Zoom. Do
Yeah.
you allow visitors to your studio?
On appointment. Happy to have folks stop by. I think I may have another. Oh, that's it. You guys you made it through. Congratulations.
All right, Tom, I want to thank you for coming and giving us this great presentation. All of you, thanks for coming. Everyone on the Zoom call, I appreciate you joining on that as well. So everyone drive safe and have a happy holidays.